The text arrived at 11:47 p.m., exactly 7 days before I was supposed to become Mrs. Blake Harrison. "We need to talk. Tomorrow morning. It's important." I stared at my phone screen, my stomach dropping like a stone into cold water. Blake never texted like that. He was the guy who sent paragraphs, who added emojis, who called instead of texted for anything serious. This felt wrong. I sat on the edge of my bed in my small apartment, surrounded by wedding binders and seating charts. The ivory dress hung on my closet door, catching the moonlight through my window. My hands started shaking. I typed back, "Is everything okay?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there watching the ceiling fan spin, counting the hours until morning, trying to convince myself it was just cold feet. Everyone got nervous before their wedding. This was normal. But deep in my gut, I knew something was very, very wrong. Blake arrived at my apartment at 9 sharp, looking like he hadn't slept either. His eyes were red, his usual perfect hair was messy, and he was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside. He walked past me into the living room and just stood there, staring at the stack of wedding favors on my coffee table. Little white boxes with our initials intertwined. B and C Blake and Clara. I crossed my arms, suddenly freezing despite the summer heat. "Just say it," I whispered. He turned around and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Not sadness, not regret, relief. "I can't do this, Clara, I can't marry you." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. I waited for him to laugh, to say he was joking, to take it back. He didn't. "We've been together for 4 years, I said, my voice breaking. "The wedding is in 7 days. Blake ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times but now felt like it belonged to a stranger. "I know the timing is terrible, I know this is awful, but I realized something last week and I can't ignore it anymore." My legs felt weak. I sat down on the couch, gripping the armrest. "What did you realize?" He paced across my small living room, his shoes squeaking on the hardwood floor. "That I've been lying to myself. That I've been going through the motions because it's what everyone expected. My parents love you. Your parents love me. Everyone thinks we're perfect together." "We are perfect together," I said, hating how desperate I sounded. He stopped packing and finally looked directly at me. "No, Clara, we're comfortable together. There's a difference. I don't feel the spark anymore. I haven't for a while." The spark. He was throwing away 4 years, throwing away our future because of a spark. I felt something hot and sharp rise in my chest. Not sadness anymore. Anger. "When did you decide this?" I asked, my voice steady now. Cold, Blake shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "I've been thinking about it for a few months." Months. He'd been planning our wedding while secretly wanting to escape it. He'd been tasting cakes, choosing flowers, writing vows, all while knowing he didn't want to marry me. "Did you meet someone else?" The question came out before I could stop it. His face flushed red. Bingo. "It's not like that," he said quickly, too quickly. "There's this woman at work, Amanda. We've just been talking. Nothing physical has happened. But the conversations made me realize what's been missing between us." I stood up, my whole body trembling with rage. "Get out. Clara, please let me explain. Get out." My voice was rising now, cracking. "You waited until 7 days before our wedding to tell me you've been emotionally cheating on me for months. You let me send out invitations, book vendors, spend thousands of dollars." Blake held up his hands like I was a wild animal he needed to calm. "I'll pay you back for everything. My parents will help cover the costs. We'll cancel everything together." "Together?" I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't feel like it came from me. "There is no together anymore, Blake. You made sure of that." He grabbed his keys from the entry table where he'd set them down. Keys that used to live on that table. Keys he'd used to let himself into my apartment hundreds of times. "I'll come by later this week to get my things," he said quietly. "Don't bother. I'll box them up and leave them outside." He looked like he wanted to say something else, maybe apologize again, but I turned my back on him. I heard the door open, then close. The lock clicked. I stood there in my living room, surrounded by wedding preparations, and felt my entire future crumble into dust. Then my phone started ringing. My mother. She'd be calling to confirm something about the rehearsal dinner. How was I going to tell her? I didn't answer my mother's call, or the 3 calls after that. I sat on my couch, staring at nothing, feeling numb. The apartment was too quiet. I could hear every tick of the clock on the wall, counting down to a wedding that would never happen. By noon, my phone was exploding. My mother, my sister Olivia, my best friend Tessa, my aunt, my cousin. Everyone wanted to know details about the wedding week. Everyone was excited. I turned my phone off. I needed to think. The deposits were non-refundable. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, the band, the florist. We'd spent nearly $40,000. Money I'd saved for years. Money my parents had contributed. All of it gone because Blake Harrison decided he needed a spark. I thought about the guest list. 200 people. Friends, family, colleagues, people who'd already bought plane tickets and hotel rooms, people who'd bought us gifts. The humiliation hit me then, sharp and brutal. Everyone would know. Everyone would pity me. Poor Clara, left at the altar. Well, almost at the altar. My phone buzzed even though it was off. No, wait, that was the doorbell. I considered not answering, but it rang again, insistent. I dragged myself to the door and looked through the peephole. Tessa. She was holding a bag from my favorite bakery and wearing her determined face. I opened the door. "Your mom called me," she said, pushing past me into the apartment. "She's worried because you're not answering. What's going on?" I opened my mouth to say it, but the words stuck in my throat. Saying it out loud would make it real. Tessa set the bakery bag on the counter and turned to look at me. Really look at me. Her face changed. "Oh no, Clara, what happened?" And then I was crying. Not pretty crying, but the ugly kind where you can't breathe and your whole body shakes. Tessa grabbed me and held on while I fell apart. When I finally could speak, I told her everything. Blake's text, his confession, Amanda from work, the spark. Tessa's face went from sympathetic to furious. "That absolute coward," she hissed. Tessa made me sit down while she made tea, even though I hated tea. She said I needed something warm and calming. What I needed was to scream. "What are you going to do?" she asked, setting a mug in front of me. "I don't know, cancel everything, I guess. Tell everyone the wedding is off." My voice sounded dead. "That's not what I meant." Tessa sat across from me, her eyes sharp. "I meant, are you going to let him get away with this? What choice do I have?" "You could still have the wedding," she said slowly. I stared at her. "Tessa, I don't have a groom. So get a different one." The suggestion was so absurd I almost laughed. "You're not serious." "I'm completely serious. Look, you've paid for everything. The venue is booked. The food is ordered. 200 people are expecting a party. Why should Blake's cowardice ruin everything?" "Because you can't just swap out a groom like he's a broken appliance," I said. "You're not swapping him out. You're choosing someone better." I shook my head. "This is crazy. Who would I even ask? You can't just marry a random person." "What about Marcus?" Tessa said. My heart stopped. Marcus Kane, my business partner and closest friend for the past 6 years, the person who knew me better than anyone, who'd been there through every crisis, every celebration, every ordinary Tuesday, the person who'd actually introduced me to Blake at a company mixer. "I can't ask Marcus to marry me," I said. "That's insane." "Why not? He's single, he adores you, and he's hated Blake for the past year." That made me look up. "What? Come on, Clara, you had to have noticed, the way Marcus tensed up whenever Blake was around. How he always found excuses to leave early when Blake showed up. He thinks Blake is wrong for you. He never said anything. Because you were happy, or he thought you were. But I guarantee if you call him right now and tell him what happened, he'll be here in 10 minutes ready to destroy Blake." I thought about Marcus. Tall, steady Marcus with his quiet humor and thoughtful eyes. Marcus who brought me coffee every morning, who knew I organized my files by color, who'd held my hand when my father died 2 years ago. Marcus who'd been acting strange lately, distant. I'd thought he was stressed about work. "Even if he would consider it, which he wouldn't, that's not a real marriage," I said. "It would be a lie." "It would be a partnership," Tessa corrected. "You already have that with him in business. This would just be expanding the contract. And honestly, you two make more sense than you and Blake ever did." I wanted to argue, but something stopped me. A memory from 3 weeks ago. Marcus and I had been doing a final walkthrough at the wedding venue. Blake was supposed to come, but canceled last minute again. Marcus had stood beside me on the empty dance floor and said, "You deserve someone who shows up, Clara, every single time." I'd laughed it off. Now those words felt heavy with meaning. Had Marcus been trying to tell me something? "I need to think," I told Tessa. She nodded, squeezing my hand. "Think fast, you have 7 days." After she left, I sat with my phone in my hand for an hour. Finally, I turned it back on. 43 missed calls, 67 texts. I ignored all of them except one contact. I typed, "Can you come over? Something happened." Marcus replied in 15 seconds, "On my way." He lived 20 minutes away. He made it in 12. When I opened the door, he was breathing hard like he'd run up all 4 flights of stairs. His eyes scanned me, checking for visible damage. "Are you hurt?" "Not physically." I let him in. He saw the wedding stuff everywhere, saw my red eyes, and his jaw tightened. "Where is he? Where's Blake?" "Gone. He called off the wedding this morning." Marcus went very still. "He did what?" I told him everything for the second time that day. With each word, Marcus's expression grew darker. His hands curled into fists. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry," Marcus finally said, his voice rough. "I'm so sorry, Clara. You deserve better than this. Everyone keeps saying that." I sat down, suddenly exhausted. "But it doesn't change anything. The wedding is off. I have to tell everyone. I have to cancel everything and lose all that money." Marcus sat beside me, careful to leave space between us. He always did that, I realized. Always maintained that respectful distance. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want to not be humiliated," I said honestly. "I want to not be the girl who got dumped a week before her wedding. I want Blake to regret this." "Then don't cancel." I looked at him. "Tessa said the same thing, but I can't have a wedding without a groom, Marcus. You could have a wedding with a different groom." His voice was steady, but I saw his hands shaking slightly. "If you wanted, if you needed someone to stand up there with you and show Blake and everyone else that you're fine." Better than fine. My heart was pounding. "Marcus, are you saying what I think you're saying?" He turned to face me fully, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never noticed before, or maybe I had noticed and chosen not to see. "I'm saying I would marry you, Clara. Tomorrow, 7 days from now, whenever you asked, it wouldn't be fake, not for me." The world tilted. "What?" "I know this is terrible timing," he continued quickly. "And I know you're in love with Blake, or you were, but I've been in love with you since the day we met. 6 years I've watched you with him, wishing it was me, hating myself for wishing that because you were happy. I couldn't breathe. You never said anything. You weren't mine to tell." His voice cracked slightly. "But you're not his anymore, and if you need someone to stand beside you next Saturday, I'm volunteering, not as a replacement, as someone who actually deserves to be there." I stood up, needing to move, needing to think. Marcus loved me. How had I not known? "This is crazy," I said, packing. "We're business partners, we're friends. You can't just marry your business partner." "Why not? We already spend every day together. We already trust each other. We already know each other's worst habits and biggest fears. That's more than most people have when they get married." He was right. God help me, he was right. "But what about love?" I asked quietly. "I don't love you, not like that. It wouldn't be fair to you." Marcus stood, crossing to me. He stopped 3 feet away, maintaining that distance again. "Let me worry about what's fair to me. I'm going into this with open eyes, Clara. I know you don't love me yet, but maybe someday you could. And until then, we'd be partners, like we've always been." "This is insane," I whispered. But even as I said it, I was thinking about it, really thinking about it. A wedding with Marcus would show everyone I was fine, better than fine. It would show Blake I didn't need him. And more than that. Deeper than that, being married to Marcus felt safe. In a way, being engaged to Blake never quite had. "I need time to think about this," I said. Marcus nodded. "Of course, but Clara, whatever you decide, I'm here. If you want to cancel everything and just disappear for a week, I'll help you pack. If you want to go through with it, I'll be there at that altar in 7 days. And if you want something in between, we'll figure it out together." That was so Marcus. Always steady, always reliable. The opposite of Blake in every way. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Anything." "When did you realize?" "That you loved me." He smiled sadly. "Day 1. You walked into that business pitch meeting wearing a yellow dress and arguing with the presenter about their data analysis. You were fierce and smart, and you didn't care that you were the youngest person in the room. I was done for." I remembered that day. I'd been 26, fresh out of graduate school, terrified but hiding it. Marcus had been the only one who'd taken my questions seriously. We'd grabbed coffee after, talked for 3 hours, and started planning our company that same week. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I asked. "Because 6 months after we started the company, you met Blake at that mixer I organized. You were so happy talking to him. You laughed at his jokes and your whole face lit up. What was I supposed to do? Tell you I loved you and make everything awkward? Ruin our partnership?" Marcus shook his head. "I wanted you to be happy even if it wasn't with me." Tears burned my eyes. "I'm so stupid. I wasted 4 years on the wrong person." "You're not stupid. You loved him." "That's not a waste, Clara. It just wasn't meant to last forever." He checked his watch. "It's getting late. Do you want me to stay? I can sleep on the couch." I should have said no. I should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I said, "Yes, please stay." That night, I lay in my bed while Marcus slept on my couch, and I stared at the wedding dress hanging on my closet door. 24 hours ago, I'd imagined walking down the aisle to Blake. Now I was imagining someone else entirely. Someone who'd been there all along. I woke up at 6 to the smell of coffee and bacon. I stumbled out of my bedroom to find Marcus in my kitchen, cooking breakfast like he'd done it 100 times before. Maybe he had. He was always showing up with food, claiming he'd made too much for himself. "Morning," he said, looking nervous. "I hope you don't mind. I figured you hadn't eaten since yesterday." I sat at the counter, watching him move around my kitchen with easy familiarity. He knew where I kept the plates, the mugs, the silverware. Of course he did. "Marcus, I need to ask you something serious." He set a plate in front of me. "Okay. If we did this, if we actually got married, what would you expect from me?" He poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle I refused to throw away. "I'd expect you to be honest with me, to be my partner like you've always been, to give this a real chance, not just go through the motions." "And if I can't love you the way you love me?" I asked quietly. Marcus sat down across from me. "Then at least I got to spend my life with my best friend. That's more than most people get, Clara." I ate in silence, thinking. Every logical part of my brain said this was ridiculous. You don't marry someone you're not in love with, even if they're your best friend, even if they've been there through everything, even if they know you better than anyone. But another part of me, a deeper part, was remembering all the times Marcus had shown up. When my father died and Blake was too uncomfortable with grief to be supportive. When I pitched our biggest client and Blake forgot to ask how it went. When I had food poisoning and Blake complained about the smell while Marcus held my hair back and made me soup. When had Blake ever really shown up? "I want to see the venue," I said suddenly. Marcus looked up. "The wedding venue?" "Yes, I need to see it. Will you come with me?" "Right now." "Right now." We drove to the Riverside estate in Marcus's car. Blake's car. Blake's car that was always dirty and smelled faintly of fast food. Marcus's car was clean and smelled like coffee and that subtle cologne he wore. The venue was 40 minutes outside the city, a beautiful old mansion with gardens and a view of the water. The coordinator, Mrs. Patterson, met us at the entrance. She was expecting me and Blake for our final walkthrough. Her smile faltered when she saw Marcus instead. "Miss Wilson, lovely to see you. Is Mr. Harrison running late?" "There's been a change," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "This is Marcus Kane. He'll be the groom now." Mrs. Patterson blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Blake and I are no longer getting married. Marcus and I are. Everything else stays the same." Same date, same time, same setup. To her credit, Mrs. Patterson recovered quickly. "I see. Well, congratulations to both of you. Shall we do the walkthrough?" She led us through the mansion, showing us where the ceremony would be, where cocktail hour would happen, where dinner would be served. Everything was exactly as I'd planned with Blake, except now I was imagining it differently. Marcus's hand in mine, Marcus's voice saying vows, Marcus waiting at the end of that aisle. When we got to the ceremony space, a beautiful garden overlooking the water, I stopped. The white chairs were already set up for a different wedding that weekend. 200 chairs facing an altar draped in flowers. "Can you picture it?" I asked Marcus quietly. We were standing at the back where I would begin my walk down the aisle. He looked at the altar, then back at me. "I've been picturing it for 6 years, Clara, just with me waiting instead of Blake." Something in my chest cracked open. "How do you do that? How do you always know the right thing to say? Because I pay attention, because you matter to me." He turned to face me fully. "But I need you to be sure. I don't want you to marry me because you're angry at Blake or because you want revenge. If we do this, I need it to mean something." "It would mean something," I said. The words came out before I could overthink them. "It would mean I'm choosing someone who actually chooses me back, someone who sees me." "I see you," Marcus said softly. "I've always seen you." Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat delicately. "Should I update our records then? Change the groom's name?" I looked at Marcus. His eyes held hope and fear and love all mixed together. I thought about Blake, about 4 years of being second priority. Then I thought about Marcus, 6 years of quiet devotion. "Yes," I said. "Update everything. The groom is Marcus Kane." The rest of the week was chaos. I had to tell my family, tell the guests, update everything. My mother cried, but not for the reasons I expected. "I always liked Marcus better anyway." She said, "That Blake boy was too smooth. Marcus has substance." My sister Olivia was thrilled. "Finally," she said. "We've all been waiting for you to figure this out." Apparently I'd been the only one who hadn't seen it. The guests were surprisingly understanding. Most of them knew Marcus from company events. Some sent confused emails, but nobody dropped out. In fact, 3 people who declined for Blake's wedding suddenly could make it for Marcus's. Blake, predictably, lost his mind. He called me 16 times the day after I updated my social media relationship status. I didn't answer. Finally, he showed up at my apartment on Thursday, 3 days before the wedding. I opened the door to find him looking terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, desperate eyes. "You can't be serious," he said. "You can't actually marry Marcus." "Why not? You didn't want to marry me." Blake pushed into my apartment. "This is crazy, Clara. You're doing this to get back at me." "No, I'm doing this because Marcus is a better man than you'll ever be." That hit him. His face flushed red. "You've known him for 6 years and never looked at him twice. Now suddenly, 1 week after we break up, you're in love with him. Nobody's going to believe that." "I don't care what people believe," I said, surprised to find it was true. "I know what's real." "What's real is you're making a huge mistake." Blake grabbed my hand. "I made a mistake, okay? I panicked. Amanda means nothing. I want you back, Clara. Cancel this ridiculous wedding with Marcus and we'll elope, just us. We'll start over." I pulled my hand away. "You had me for 4 years, Blake. You took me for granted every single day. You forgot my birthday twice. You missed my father's funeral because you had a work trip you could have rescheduled. You never once asked me what I needed." "That's not fair." "It's completely fair. And you know what Marcus did when my father died? He flew back from a conference in Tokyo. He lost a huge contract to be there. That's the difference between you two." Blake's face hardened. "You're going to regret this." "The only thing I regret is wasting 4 years on you." I walked to the door and opened it. "Leave, Blake. You don't get to decide you want me back just because someone else does." He left, but not before saying, "I'll be there Saturday. I'm going to stop this wedding." I called Marcus immediately. "Blake knows. He's threatening to object." "Let him try," Marcus said calmly. "I'm not scared of Blake Harrison." Saturday arrived too fast and not fast enough. I stood in the bridal suite at Riverside Estate, wearing my ivory dress, my hands shaking as Tessa fixed my hair. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm good, nervous, but good." "Second thoughts?" "No," and I meant it. Somewhere in the past 7 days, something had shifted. Maybe it was spending every evening with Marcus, talking until midnight. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Maybe it was realizing that love didn't always start with fireworks. Sometimes it started with friendship and grew into something deeper. "He's going to be a good husband," Tessa said softly. "I know." Music started. My mother hugged me, crying happy tears this time. "Your father would have loved Marcus," she whispered. Then I was walking. Down the hallway, through the mansion, toward the garden where 200 people waited. The doors opened. I saw Marcus standing at the altar in a sharp black suit, his eyes fixed on me. The look on his face took my breath away, like he couldn't believe this was real, like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. I started down the aisle. Halfway there, I saw him. Blake sitting in the back row. He stood up, his mouth opening. This was it. He was going to object. Marcus saw him too. His jaw tightened. But before Blake could say anything, my Uncle Tommy, a retired police officer, stood up and placed a hand on Blake's shoulder. Firmly. Blake sat back down. I kept walking. When I reached Marcus, he took my hands. They were steady where mine shook. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I came. I always show up for you." The ceremony was perfect. The vows were traditional, but when Marcus said, "I do," his voice was thick with emotion. When I said it back, I meant it, every word. The kiss was soft and sweet and promised more. As we walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, I saw Blake in the back row. He looked destroyed. Amanda from his work was nowhere to be seen. I didn't feel triumphant or vindicated. I just felt free. At the reception, during our first dance, Marcus pulled me close. "Are you happy?" he asked. I looked around at my family, my friends, all celebrating. I looked at my new husband, the man who'd waited 6 years for this moment. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," I said. And for the first time in 4 years, that was true. Blake left before dinner. I didn't notice until someone mentioned it later. I was too busy dancing with Marcus, too busy laughing with my sister, too busy starting my real life with someone who actually deserved to be in it. The spark Blake had chased? I found it, just not where I expected. Sometimes the best love stories don't start with lightning. They start with friendship, patience, and someone who sees you completely and loves you anyway.